Hey everybody, I'm Phil Nagel. I started Osborne about 5 months ago as a BIM manager, working alongside Scott Johnson, helping with CAD and BIM standards as well as troubleshooting issues with the company. What we've been doing here is putting together a series of different topics. Today we're looking at specifically, minimize this. All right. Today specifically we're looking at BIM 360 as an introduction here. We're going to do two-part series for this. Scott and I were talking about it. We're thinking it's good to do a general overview of all the features of BIM 360, what you can do with and without an entitlement. And then the next set of sessions will be focused on the workflows within BIM 360 and how you can really leverage it and get into a project and apply the tools. But today it's just kind of a general overview and how you can apply some of these tools without an entitlement. Okay, so thinking about BIM 360 as a concept, it's basically a cloud-based platform. It's very similar workflow to what we've been used to in the past as far as taking a Revit model, work sharing it on the server, and then collaborating with team members within our office. The issue comes when you want to start collaborating with team members outside of our office, and now we have our central model on our server. We have to package it up, send it out, and you're downloading and uploading files. So there's some downtime there. So what the BIM 360 concept does is it allows you to centralize your Revit data in a cloud-based platform to where everybody has access to it. We can set security and permissions. So it's a quicker, easier to access source for collaborating with big teams, especially with different companies. The cool thing about it too is that as a document storage center, it's compatible with over 60 plus formats and counting. So all your different types of 3D files, 2D CAD files. It's a nice universal platform to store all of our files. And we can review and compare versions as we go too. So thinking about the return on your investment with having a BIM 360 license, the big thing that most companies are reporting is the time savings. Because you're not downloading and uploading files every time there's an update, we're hearing that it saves about 20% in your typical workflow. So we're minimizing the rework by seeing the latest updates from everybody as the project progresses. That's referred to as live linking. So each team can post their latest Revit files and work on the file live within BIM 360, and then you can see those updates every time you sync and reload the latest. But the cool thing about it is not all users need to have a BIM 360 license or entitlement. Some of the features work without. We'll show some of that today, how to use those tools. As long as you're invited to the project and you're an active user, you can still view the project even though you're not technically contributing to the Revit file. So thinking about what BIM 360 is and what it has to offer, it's kind of an a la carte type offering where there's different modules. There's several that are also available for the construction side, and that's like your coordinate and build. Primarily within Osborne, we'll be focusing on docs and design. Docs is kind of your backbone for all your file storage and the different formats, 3D and 2D documents. And then the design is your design collaboration where you can be an active contributor and do the live cloud work sharing files. Design itself includes docs, and so most of our licenses that we have includes both docs and design collaboration. Let's see here. But yeah, there's other options like coordinate and build. That's more for the coordination and punch list type items that you see in the field. But in general, this is docs and design are where we're going to be working. And just another graphic to kind of illustrate the point of that all the documents and files live on the cloud. So whether you're working on a desktop computer or a laptop at home through VPN, typically, this gives you a direct link to a web portal that doesn't have to go through a server within our office. So it gives you that direct link, saves time and less roadblocks, if you will, of accessing the latest files. And if you're like someone like a PM who's not typically working within the Revit file, you just want to review it. If you have an iPad or even an iPhone, you can download an app and review the files that way. So logging into BIM 360, there's a couple ways to access it. One of the main ones is the web portal. So you would log into docs.b360.autodesk.com, or you could just Google for it. It should pop up, but basically you need to sign in with your Autodesk credentials, and you'll be able to access any projects that you've been invited to. This is an example here with CCI where you can see where we have two sections. There's the plans and project files over here. Plans is going away next year. It's been confusing to most users. Most of our project files typically will be housed under project files here. Your 3D files, supporting CAD files, even other documents too. So you'll see there's different folders here for different companies, and you can manage permissions of each folder so that certain users can't access or manipulate other companies' files. But the nice thing is you have direct access to the latest files from each company. And you can see here's the Osborne folder with the live files, your mechanical, plumbing, and technology. And you can download or view it from this portal. A lot of the tools that we're going to be talking about today, this is the portal you'll go through to access and view those files. Now, to open them, you would go through Revit if you're an active Revit user, but this is how you would view the files and just review them from here. Design collaboration. So this is the other part of it. This is part of the design suite where you, if you're more interested in, if you're actually an actual contributor and the live cloud work sharing, this portal allows you to do the more sophisticated part of BIM 360 where you're managing publishes and packages of your updates. And so what you get is these swim lanes up top, which show the individual teams and what activity's been happening. And we'll dive deeper into this in the next BIM 360 session, where you can have the different workflows. So we'll talk more about that in detail later. But just as a general overview, you can see there are circles. Some are highlighted, some are filled, some are hollow. This allows you to understand, what's been published and when and by who. And this, you can see here, this is the latest published. And then your packages are down here below that you can review and accept them. But typically you see more of the live linking where we don't interface with this as much, but this is an option under design collaboration. So some of the terminology you might be hearing, team space, that's where the files live, your live link files. You see the different team folders. A shared space is a folder that is shared between the different project teams. So you'll have disciplines for each team in that folder space. Set, that's basically, it's a combination of views and or sheets published from Revit. That's your 2D views, your sheet views, and your 3D model, and you'll see that here in a little bit. Packages, that's a simple way to remember that, the set plus the Revit model. So share, it's make a package available to other teams in the shared space. So some of the other workflows, you can publish a series of documents and make that available to other teams. And then consume, that's just a more controlled way of managing the shares, who accesses it and when. Otherwise, typically we like to do the live linking where you just have direct access to the working file. So talking about the BIM 360 site, something that throws a lot of people off is each team, each company that hosts a project, they have that count, they have that project on their company account. So if you're trying to access certain projects, you have to remember to go up here in the web portal and change the account. So right here you can see we have 2 different projects under 2 different companies. All you got to do is click up here in the drop down and then just click change account, and then you'll see the different companies pop up, and then any projects that are under that company should populate down in your menu. So that throws some people off, kind of confusing. But as far as having access to the site, you'll have to get an invite from the actual project creator before you can have access to the project contents. And so this is what your typical project invitation will look like. The project owner will send you an invite from their portal, and you'll get an email. And you actually have to click on this link, otherwise it won't let you have access to the files. Sometimes it doesn't work with certain browsers, so try it once, and if you don't see anything happen, you can always copy that link to another browser, and hopefully you'll have success that way. So, and just to reiterate, this is, you don't need a license to view the file, but if you want to be an active contributor, you will need a license. So those are 2 separate things. There's the project invite, and there's the license entitlement email. But this is just so you have access to the project. Oh, we've got a question here. What does entitlement mean? Entitlement is basically just a fancy word for license. So BIM 360 license is separate from your typical Autodesk license for your Revit and other software, your CAD. So that is, so you get your CAD, your Revit license, and then you also have a separate license for BIM 360 access. Similar to Dropbox, we have this portal for managing your files between BIM 360 and your Windows desktop. It's called Desktop Connector. So if you're familiar with Dropbox, where you have like a basically like a virtual folder on your desktop that looks just like any other folder on your computer, this allows you to have that direct connection to the web portal without having to log in. There's a little bit of delay, just like with Dropbox, trying to sync to it. But it allows you to basically set up your project folder structure without having to log in. One of the key things to remember with that is you don't need to, it's not a great place to really manage your Revit files, but if you're just trying to set up the folder structure, move some linked CAD files and other supporting documents, it's a great way to populate in through there. And what you'll do is you'll go to your desktop and you'll see this BIM 360 like under one of your drives, and then you'll see the different project folders. But you'll need to have all your projects established, but then once you have them established, you can start to populate them. You see under here too, this is BIM 360 drive. But it's a free app. You can go to, you can Google it or go to Autodesk website, and you'll see this interface here. It says download the latest version of Desktop Connector. And then, as far as like managing Revit files, it's best to, once you have this site, once you have your project site set up on BIM 360, it's best to save it through Revit and make your updates there. If you do decide to download from the Desktop Connector, you'll get the latest published version and not necessarily the latest live link. So talking about tools without the entitlement, but you're still invited to the project. That's a key thing to remember. To have access to project files, you have to be invited to the project. Otherwise, you won't see anything in your menus, even with a license. So they're two separate things. So that license entitlement, you get that set up, and then you get your project invite. But if you don't have a license, you can still use these tools. So desktop connector is free to download, and then you'll be able to, get the contents of that project. You can download published content and upload non-Revit files. You'll have access to all the BIM 360 docs web interface, but something to keep in mind, if you try to open Revit and access those files, you'll see the files will be grayed out. That just means that they're there, but because you don't have a license to actively contribute to the files, they'll just be grayed out and you won't have access. You'll still be able to download them from the web portal, but you won't be able to do anything to the state of the Revit file. And then so, like we were saying before, it's, you're only looking at the latest published versions because you're not a live collaborator, but you can still, have access to that and see, the different sheets, the 3D views, anything that's been published by the Revit users. And then the cool thing is you can add issues, markups, you can compare published iterations, so different versions. You can compare, version 2 to version 3, see what's changed. And then you can also see, what's been added, modified, some really nice tools in there. But the key thing is that they have to be published. If we're working with just live files and not publishing, these features won't work. So another just quick recap, uploading to the BIM 360 without entitlement, just go to your desktop, look for the BIM 360 portal, or if you're on the web portal, you can click on upload files. I'm pretty sure you can even drag and drop into here too. Download, same thing. You can go through the BIM 360 icon on your desktop, or you can go to the web portal, click on the file, and then go download source. But just remember, it's the latest published version. It's probably not going to be the latest. Okay, so quick overview of some of the features, and then later on we'll do a live demo of some of these, show you kind of the workflow a little more naturally. When you go into the docs module, if the project's been published and views have been set, you can go in and look at a 2D plan view, and then also, compare it with, you can do a split view where you can see the 3D elements as well. So you can come over here, you can click on the stairs, it will highlight it in 3D. You can take measurements, you can highlight and isolate different systems. Because it's a smart Revit model, all these components and properties carry over into the both views, so they correlate and they communicate to each other. So you can control the visibility over here. You can move the model around, change settings, and just be able to review the model that way. You can also compare versions. There's an option here to where you can click one of the icons, and it will take the version that you're looking at of the model, and it will compare it to a previous version. And what you can do, what that does is it highlights and color codes the different elements, so that if it's green, it means it's been added, red means removed, and yellow means modified. So you have this little menu over here that pops up where you can isolate systems based on discipline, or you can even sort it further by filtering for certain systems. So if any of you are familiar with Navisworks, this is kind of a similar idea where you have like a file tree over here of all your different systems, and you can isolate them that way. Just a really good way to comb through models to see, where the major changes are that might not be as evident just looking at a 2D drawing. Let's see here. Check some good notes. have more success using Chrome. Agreed. Yeah, licenses or the accessing the portal seems to work pretty well with Chrome. Are licenses shared? Typically, the licenses we have one license per user if they're an active contributor to the Revit files on the projects. But if you just need access to the project for review, then we can just invite you to the project and you can use these tools here.
The entitlements are tied to your username.
Yep.
You can move them from one user to another, but it's not necessarily instant.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the other thing too. Like when Scott and I are assigning licenses entitlements, sometimes there's a little bit of delay with getting them set up. Not too bad, a couple hours, but it's there can be some lag there. So another nice tool is markups. Something that's kind of interesting. So I think Autodesk acquired PlanGrid not too long ago, and so it's kind of curious that a lot of the tools look very similar to PlanGrid, and they've incorporated some of that workflow recently, where you have these markup tools off to the side, and you can put clouds or squiggly lines or text on the drawings or 3D views, and you make notes. And then what that does is you can come over here and it creates a running list of different markups that you've added. Initially, the way it works is you have a private markup, and then only you can see that under your account. And then if you want it to be visible to the team, you can do the drop down on that markup and say publish. The only caveat with that is once you publish it, it stays visible to the team, and then if you want it to go away, you archive it. So that's kind of the workflow there. But if you're familiar with PlanGrid or ever seen it, it's a very similar workflow. And then that is a running list over here that can be shared, filtered, sorted with the team. And then just another view of that, of how once you start populating more markups. Cool thing is once you click on the markup, it takes you to the view that the markup's located, and you can see it up close. You can edit it if it's still private. Once it's published, it's kind of locked, but you can always hide it through an archive. So the other helpful tool within the Doc suite is the issue tracking. So the way this works is you can go through, you can look at 2D views or 3D views, and you basically put a push pin somewhere on the plan, and then you can identify what that is. Say that it's an open issue, they're color-coded to let you know the status of what that issue is. And then the way it works is you identify what the issue is, a person who can help fix it. You can add some notes about the issue. You can set a date of when it should be resolved by. And then what this does is once you've created it, it will send an email to that person, and then it will create a communication chain back and forth. You can respond to that email, you can add notes to it, and then the colors will change of your running list. So you can see here, blue means it's been answered, and then it will gray out if it's been resolved or closed. And so here's just another example of looking at it from a 3D standpoint, where some details are added over here. There's the different options, and if, say, there's another issue that arises from that, you can go from answered to open. You can customize the status of that issue, and then BIM 360 keeps a running log of that activity between the different users. So I'll do a live demo of that as well. So the entitlement for Revit, basically Revit editing in BIM 360. This is basically just that license we were talking about. So all those features that we've already talked about, those are included. But the main difference with an entitlement is that you can become an active contributor to Revit editing. And that includes live linking, linking to shared, and publish consume. typically we're doing the live linking, but that's where the entitlement, that's what the entitlement allows you to do. And then from there, you can manage your publishing, packages, and sets. To get an access to a license, we have a software request form. It's about $950 a year per user for the subscription, but we can get access to a license with approval pretty quickly, usually within a day or so. Sometimes we have a couple on hand that we can turn over pretty quickly. But just if you're interested in getting one, you don't have one, just fill out that software request form and then complete it. Send it to Scott or me, and you'll get an email from Autodesk alerting you that you've been granted access to an entitlement. So that's what that email will look like. And then you just click this link here. As someone else said, use Chrome works pretty well. Click on that, and that should activate your account. You'll sign in, and you should be able to start working on projects. But remember, you have to get invited by the project owner to gain access to that. And just a quick, high-level summary of the different workflows. Scott next series of sessions will get more into the workflows and the nuances with each one, and also how to manage your projects. But just as an overview, you got live linking, link from shared, and publish consume. Live linking seems to be the favorite. It's very simple. You manage folders of the different teams on the project. You set permissions. You save your Revit file to that folder, and then other teams save their Revit files, their working Revit files in there, and then you just link yours to theirs, and then every time they sync and you reload the latest, you're seeing their working files. It's not necessary to publish, but it's a good idea because that allows these tools, the markups, the compare, the issue tracking, that allows non-Revit users to get in there and, I guess, add their 2 cents. Linking from shared, it's the same idea as live linking, but you're linking from a shared folder. And what this does is allows the teams to kind of manage when certain iterations of their work is accessed. So you may be like on version 4 and you share a publish, but then maybe you don't want to share another publish until version 8. So you can, it's basically a way of managing when the other teams have access to your file. And then the publish consume is even more controlled to where you have a share folder, but then you can go into the BIM 360 module and look and review and decide whether you want to pull that down or not. So that's that consume part. So it's just a few different options. Live linking is pretty much the most common. These other options are available if the team feels the need to be more strategic about when they access certain files. And this is what that consume portion of the review and consume portion of the design collaboration looks like. This is an example here where it's like an architectural package, and then you can look on the file, review it if they've published the 3D views, and you can see what they've changed or added, and say, yep, I want to consume this file, and then it will put the consume data in your consume folder. So, but Scott will cover some more of that here in the next series, and but that's just kind of the general overview. So I want to do a live demo here of some of the different features, do a quick check on questions. Dan asks, are entitlements a yearly fee or can they be per project? Typically, they're a yearly fee, $950 a year per person. And so we just see how we do the software request form. I don't think there's any way to do a per project setup.
No, but if a project finishes and someone doesn't need a license, you can assign that one that you've already paid for to somebody else if they don't need it anymore.
That's a good point. Yeah, we can move license entitlements around. That's a good point. Publish is tied to plan views and 3D model, correct. If not routinely publish and wouldn't see the latest work. Yeah, that's correct. So with the publish of the sets of the 2D views and the 3D model, and I'll show you that here in a couple of minutes, that allows the visibility to other team members who don't have an entitlement. Otherwise, it's only limited to the people who do have an entitlement through the live model. So, but these tools, for these tools, the work that we're looking at right now, you need to publish, I'd say, on a decently regular basis, and it varies, but some projects you're seeing like once a week or maybe once every other week, just to get the latest version on there. All right, so with that said, I'll hop over to the BIM 360. Let me close this. Let me see here. Yeah, so here on the web portal, let me just go back to the main page here. Up top, so this is the live web portal for the CCI project. They have a couple pieces in here that make it a good example to show of the layout, how permissions are managed, in the different areas of the site. Up here in the top left, you got your menus, your project home, your document management, design collab, and then project admin. Project home is just your dashboard. Oh, nice. Log in real quick. And so this gives you an overview of the project, the address, some weather, any packages that have been issued, and then if any of the team members have been identifying issues or markups, a lot of times they'll pop up here, and then they'll also see the status. Actually, that's just for issues. I don't think markups are shown here. But then I can go back to Docs. So once we're in Docs, this is where all the files are stored for the project. Under Project Files, remember Plans is going away next year, so Project Files is the place we want to hang out. We have a folder for each company, and those are managed permissions. And Scott will cover more of that later in next sessions. But you can see here, in different companies, our files within Osborne are located here. These are the different published versions and who last published them. If there's any issues or markups, you'll see little flags here identified. Here's your upload file. If you click on a checkbox, some more options pop up here to basically manipulate, or you can download your source file if you're a entitled user for your license. As far as reviewing it though, you find your file, and then let's click on, let's do mechanical. I'll click on that file, and then it takes you into this preview mode. And then from there, you can zoom in on your 3D, and you have a side menu over here. You have an option to do phases. So if you want to just look at new construction, it will actually isolate the system. You can click on the different components. You can see over here you got your model browser. So you can manage the visibility of the models in different ways. And this is all through the web interface. You don't need to have Revit or anything like that. You just need to be invited to the project, and then log in through the BIM 360 web portal. But you can go through here, you can review the model, you can spin it around. Just remember it's web-based, so if you have a big file, it might take a little while to buffer, but you see this little green bar loading down there. But you can zoom. There's a first-person thing where you can actually walk around. If any of you are familiar with Navisworks, it's very similar. Allows you to look around, just kind of see what's going on. But just remember, this is only the latest published version, so there may be work that's still going on, but at least you can keep an idea of, you know, what's been done so far. I can go to level 1, roof. So because the Revit file is linked in, you can isolate the different levels. It's kind of nice too. So as far as, let's see here, let's look at split view. And we'll go to a different file here. Let's go to AC. Let's try this. You always want to give it a few seconds to load. It can get a little clunky if you try to start moving pretty quickly. You can see it's thinking, a little loading bar there. And so over here under Sheets and Views, you see how there's a 3D, and then you can go to 2D. I can click on the drawing, and this is the drawing pulled directly from the Revit views. So this is where it becomes important to establish, you know, which 2D views and 3D views you want to publish so that these are visible. And because it's from Revit, it's a smart sheet. So I can click on this fixture here, and then I can open up the split view, which will open up the 3D view on the side. So I'll double click this, and then it highlights it in the 3D model over here, which I can then, if I'm not sure exactly where it is in the 3D space, I can actually spin it around. And it's got this kind of X-ray vision going on, so you can see, you know, what's all there. If I want to look at a different fixture, just come over here, double click that. And then you're good to go. So this works with all the different views. You can do it from 2D or 3D side. A good way to, you know, see 2D, compare the two. And then you can unclick that. And just a little side note too, you got some other tools down here like measure. So if I want to double check the measurement between two drawings, you can go here. There is an option to calibrate it, so we want to check that too, but that is an option there. You can do area. You can, there's an option here to click on the floor plan to locate it in 3D. And then also just to look at the properties in general from Revit. So next up is compare. Let me see here, I'll pick a different drawing. So looking at this drawing, if we want to compare one version to another, you can come down here and click this compare button. This is just those two arrows. And we'll give it a sec. I'll say compare version 10 to version 9. I'll take a few seconds, so I'll think about it. And then we'll zoom in. And just like we saw in the example before, it says 285 objects have been added, 287 have been removed, 612 have been modified. You can come over here, because it's just so much data, you may want to isolate a system. You might want to say, well, I want to hide, let's see, hide architectural changes. And you see it drops any of those that are relevant. You could hide structural. And then you can further look for and filter by clicking on, well, I only want to see electrical equipment. Now it's isolated it to just the electrical equipment. Then we can zoom in and see exactly what's changed. This has been modified, These have been updated. This one's been removed. All right, so that's pretty much compare. Now let's take a quick look at markups. So markups works in both 2D and 3D. Over here on the right, by default, you have these different options. You can freehand. You can just come in here, do that. I'm not going to save a markup, or I'm not going to publish anything because it's a live project. But when I first create a markup, it's private, so nobody else can see it. If you wanted to make it visible to others, you can do this drop-down menu here and hit that world icon, and it'll publish it, and then it'll keep a running tally of all the markups over here. You can change colors, cancel that. You can add clouds, you can add text, call-out notes. And it'll save it to that pertinent view. So anytime you click on your markup, I'll just go ahead and save it. And if I go to my markups, you can see at 1243, here's my markup. If I exit this view, I can click on that, and then it highlights, you know, whatever I was looking at, plus any attachments. If you want to take a photo, or, you know, something else from the project files in your 360 account. Then you also have the, you know, option to edit it and delete if it's still private. If not, if it's published, it's kind of locked. But I'm just going to go ahead and delete that.
And if it's published, everybody can see it, right?
If it's published, everybody can see it. It's kind of locked in time. And that from there, if you want to hide it, you can archive it. And then last but not least, issues. So the way the issues work is just like that little push pin that we saw earlier. I'll create an issue. You just go somewhere on the project, click the push pin, give it a name, and then you can assign it. So everybody on the team is identified in here. You can pick a specific person. And then, go back here. You can say where it is, and then you can identify who you are, what the problem might be. You can add a description, and then also add a due date. And then once that's all created, it sends an email to the party involved, and then it starts a conversation, and then you can change the status. And so all of that will be visible on the account user's dashboard, which is nice because then you can see any open issues. It's kind of like a running task list. And those get updated as, you know, versions change and conversations happen. I'll cancel that. Do a quick check here for any questions. Cool. And, you know, you got, if the project's set up in a way that, yeah, multiple phases or multiple levels, these are also great ways to isolate those. Close out this. I'm trying to think if there's anything else here. So there's our shared folder. You can see under shared, we have the different disciplines from all the different companies. And so that's where we would do the controlled sharing if that was something we wanted to do. But typically you'll see the live linked files, you know, in each of the different folders. There's the consume folder if we're doing the publish consume workflow. Your issues can also pop up here. You see we don't have any issues at the moment. So that's kind of the gist of the overview. You know, again, we'll go more into the nuances of the individual workflows and how to manage permissions, set up your project, you know, properly. When we have our next series, we'll go into that in more detail. I guess at this point, I'd like to open up to see if anybody has any questions. And I can do some examples too, if there's interest.
Everybody's currently muted, but you can unmute yourself to ask a question.
There's some questions in the
chat, I think.
Oh, let me see here. Oh, I got the controls set in. Here we go. Okay, can a preset list of categories be pulled down from issues?
So what I was using on that was some other softwares, cloud-based, where you have, you know, people putting in the same issue. Could it start with electrical? Can issues be sorted by trade? You know, I don't know if it's too close to a punch list, and that would be part of the construction module.
I think so. I think that's closer to what some of the other modules are doing. Let's take a quick look though, because I haven't gone that.
Yeah, but like, yeah, room name. So everybody's saying the same room name instead of just, you know, abbreviating it different. Or, you know, if you say scrap, you know, diffuser misaligned, and another guy says aligned, you know,
Yeah.
register grill, you know, how do they know, like, you know, here's all the register grill issues if people were using different keywords?
Yeah, I know there's an option to filter and sort. Let me see here.
Philip, you can do it in our tech model if you want, just to save stuff, so we're not in somebody else's.
Okay.
Matter.
Okay, thanks. Let's go back to, okay, close this one here. Yeah, so I'll just do a test one here. So I'll create an issue. Let's call this test one tech. Create. New issue's been created. And so you can filter.
How about
So
under location? Are you able to add a room number under location? No. So it's exactly like PlanGrid, I think. You need to type in a location initially, and then it'll be saved under results.
Yeah. So what I have is, because people aren't, the location, if not everybody types the location exactly right, and then you sort by a location, you miss locations that weren't typed right. So what I've done, I don't know if it was in BIM 360, but it was in Newforma, where you could put the room, an Excel file. So location is you're dropping down from an Excel file of all the rooms, numbers and names exactly spelled one way, so that when you sort by room, you're getting everything. That was, you know, just a different platform, and I'm not trying to compare it, but I was just, and that may be in the next module, because you said punch listing was in the next one, but you know, I'm just thinking how that would be used for here. If I want, you know, could
maybe if
a lot of these are
place the
drop down, but
issue-
it's not like preloaded drop down.
Yeah, and maybe if you place the issue directly into a room in a model, it may pre-populate if it's smart enough to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, let's take a look at that.
I mean, the more you have as preset drop-downs, it's the more organized it is, but this is maybe more design.
Yeah, we could experiment with that down the road too to see if it does automatically populate based on the room that it's in, because being that it's a Revit file, it knows the room. It's just a matter of, does the issue know the exact location like you're saying? So if I look at issues, I want to,
Yeah, I would just like it tied to the actual room list that the architects established.
yeah, I'd be curious
When you
to
say
see if it is.
location, yeah.
Yeah. Say that. Yeah, I'll have to play with that a little bit more to kind of see what nuances set that or program it, you know, to see what works and what doesn't with that. That's kind of interesting.
No, this is very good.
Cool.
Hey, Phil and Scott, this is Jim. We're just a quick question on if it's all cloud-based, what's Osborne's approach on local model saving, archiving, milestone, saving the project on the network? I mean, how does that happen? What's the process or the workflow with that? Kind of like the ownership of our models, and where does it actually live on the network, or saving models, copies, those kinds of things?
My understanding is that there's a local cache, but it's kind of buried. But as far as archiving, Scott, do you have?
Yeah, in terms of archiving, because BIM 360 archives it, whenever you either upload or publish, there's not too much need for us to archive it ourselves, although we can download it and archive it at any point if we want. And then usually, when you start a model, it will be on our server initially, and then once you get a few things set up, you will upload it to the cloud to BIM 360. In addition, if for some reason, like Amazon went down and took BIM 360 with it, which did happen once, you can, when you work on a BIM 360 model, it is technically saving local files. It kind of hides those from you. It's buried like 2 directories under a hidden directory, and it's got a file name that consists of a bunch of random numbers. But it is possible to create new central files from those local files.
Hey, so I guess my question is, do we have, as Osborne, adopted an approach of how, if we do want to archive, when we archive, that kind of, I would just ask that question. And I just kind of go back to, you know, right before even BIM 360, I'm thinking about previous Revit projects where, you know, if we got a weekly Revit model from an architect, we would throw it in the inbound folder, you know, process it and throw it into the working directory. But then if you ever went back to the inbound folder, it could be literally 20 architectural models that were received over a 2 months period. But the cloud base is kind of, you know, we're kind of going away from that. And is there any legalities, or, you know, has leadership or anybody thought about what we want to do for our own protection, you know, for, I guess for our own protection, our own legal, I don't know, just there's any issues with that. So I was just kind of curious if anybody's thought about that or put a process to that.
No, not really. But like I said, anytime you do an upload or a publish, it does create a record of that you can go back to later on BIM 360. In fact, the reason why it's able to do those compares, where it tells you what's new and what's been deleted since the last time it was published, the reason why you're able to do that is because it saves these older versions.
Yeah. So,
But to Jim's point, it might be good practice once a week to download all the files, including the architect's files, off of the web and put it on an Osborne server to be safe.
yeah, I'm just, I mean, K2M, like on this particular project, K2M could just all of a sudden cut off all the share or all the access to it, right? And all of a sudden we've lost that work. Say there was a legal issue between us and K2M on deliverables or something, and they could just cut us off, and we don't have that model anymore, or access to that model, right? Or you know, because we're not typically the ones up starting the project and leading people in. We're at, you know, we're working for the architect. I just, you know, just I think it's a process or some thought wants to be put to it.
Maybe
You know,
some ownership verbiage in the
Yeah.
proposal as well.
Yeah, I think it'd be beneficial to do an occasional archival download of the published versions. You know, that can be, you know, established as, you know, once a month or once a week. You just go in there and just download it and save it to a archive folder on the server.
Especially for other people's models.
Oh, for sure.
Ours are more retrievable.
That's true, because there's the local cache.
Yeah.
But yeah, just having that project record, it'd certainly be beneficial just to have that additional backup.
Scott, but you know, Scott, when you say it's retrievable, I get it because of the local cache, but let's just say we're into CDs 75% of the way, and for some reason something happened in DD that you'd want to go back and grab a DD level model. I mean, is that still retrievable through the cache, through local models?
No.
Yeah.
No, for that you need to have archived it. The local cache is only, I mean, it's basically like your local model when you're working in Revit normally.
When you just, yeah, you recently worked on it. It's just, I was kind of like, would be curious if Sean Johnson or any leadership had any, you know, or any Hauser manual process to this, or what we want to do to protect ourselves. Maybe it's just the PDFs and that's all we care about, and we just keep copies of those. But just kind of wonder what the thought was. You've answered it. Thank you.
That sounds good. So I think there's one other question here. Dan, yeah, everything you just showed can only be done through the web browser, correct? Cannot be done through Revit. Yeah. So like your version compare and your markups, your issues, that's all through the web portal. We're trying to think in Revit if there's any similar functions. There's like a coordination tab, but through the BIM 360 function, I don't think it works like that.
The Revit pretty much still works like Revit.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is all through that web portal.
Which again, to your point, you don't need Revit to be able to do this version history, to be able to view what's going on.
Correct.
For PMs,
yeah, good point.
Or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, so as long as the team's doing regular publishes, you can see those different views and then compare versions, both 2D and 3D versions, and see those variances, which is nice, even on an iPad. But, you know, again, with the mobile devices, it might be a little bit clunkier because of the data, but it works universally well.
And then the last thing for me, the 3D comparison is only if a 3D model has been created, or is that a default view from Revit for any sort of 3D coordination?
I think the 3D is the default when you when you live link, if you're just saving like through the live link, I don't think by default it gives the 3D. I think you have to publish it.
Yeah, in order to do the compare,
To do the compare.
they have to be published.
Yeah, they have, that's right.
It's comparing the most recently published to one of the past publishes.
But
Yeah.
it's not based on how well an architect knows how to make a 3D view. Just in case there's some lacking architects that don't do 3D views.
No.
Yeah,
It's
it's the default 3D, right?
Yeah, in
Gotcha.
fact, when you first upload a model to the cloud, it's sort of not immediately ready to go because it has to build this custom web interface views of it.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
we can, and we'll talk more too about like the nuances of that too in the next series where, you know, like how do you set what views are published to a set, and so that way, you know, for sure, like certain 2D views or specific 3D views are captured. Cool. Any other final questions? We'll go ahead and try to wrap up here.
Not a question, but this is Tom Stecker. I just had a testimony to this. The same software that Turner used to do the Cleveland Convention Center. They used the build module, and I can contest it saved at least 20% of time. They have everything on an iPad.
Nice.
Yeah, great job. No, this is the future.
Thank you. Well, thanks for everybody's time. I appreciate you guys taking time out to join us and join the conversation. And we'll keep moving forward. It's some exciting technology, and it's constantly improving. So we'll continue to see more updates, and we'll keep learning on the processes and how they become, I guess, more efficient with this type of workflow. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.